Wonderful. All right. I think we're all here. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I bet you're all as excited as we are about the new season. My name is Max. I'm the CEO and co-founder of HiveTracks, and I'm going to be leading today's webinar together with James Wilkes, my partner in beekeeping and partner in technology. I will pass it over to you, James. Take us away.
All right, Max, thanks. And yeah, welcome everybody. And it's as most of you know, we've really already kicked off the season, but this is the first webinar of the season. So yeah, let's talk about where we are, where we're going to go. So on the agenda today, I'm going to do a little bit of recap just of the winter. And I don't know if you've been part of our series, we kind of track with my beekeeping here in the corner of North Carolina and Creston. And I'm sitting here looking out my window at the spring that's trying to happen around me. And so anyway, we track a little bit with what's happening here, just so you can see what our bee season is like, and you'll know that we're actually real beekeepers, just normal people like you all trying to figure this stuff out. Um, and so along with that, what should you be thinking about now? And that's going to vary based on your geography, of course, but we can kind of hit all the points on that. And then kind of a how to use HiveTracks well this time of year, or some highlight some things maybe you haven't seen or you haven't tried or looked at, but just some elements of HiveTracks that I think are really important to what we do and for the bigger picture, just outside of your beekeeping, in addition to the just the community. And then we have a very special part of the program today that we are super excited about and finding it hard to contain ourselves, but we will try. On yeah, you're hearing about AI and what it's doing out there, and it's touching us as well. And we have some things to share that we're doing in that direction that we hope you'll find interesting. And then we got time for Q&A at the end, and just submit your questions along the way into the chat, and I'll answer questions as well as we go. But if you have whatever questions, wonderings, musings, put it in the chat, and we'll throw it into the Q&A at the end. We've got a few questions there that you submitted early. So, all right, Max, let's kick it off. Yeah, so in the eastern U.S. in particular, in the eastern seaboard and the Northeast, upper Midwest, it was pretty much a cold and snowy winter. And the snow kind of came, pretty regular, more so than it has been in the past, especially for where I am. And so that was a little bit different. I think west of the Mississippi, it was kind of the opposite. It was a little less snow, especially the ski resorts and that sort of thing. Our friends in Canada, I think y'all got your fair share, uh, as usual. But I think some of that was probably shifted as well east a little bit, in Ontario and that area. But this is from my farm. I mean, we were at -9 Fahrenheit. That was my low point of the season. And those little single deeps are trying there in the middle to get through it. And then you can see on the right-hand side, this is the result of some of that. If you've got a smallish cluster, they're going to have a tough time keeping heat. And so that's from a dead out right there. But you can see how close the honey is to that cluster, right? So it wasn't necessarily starvation in that case. It was pretty clear that's just they just got too cold, didn't have enough bees to keep it warm. So yeah, so that's kind of what our winter was like. Next one, Max. Oops, what was that? Okay, along the way, just a detour to Nobby, I had to get the picture of Max in his bee costume. Uh, there we are. All right. And so some of you we saw there, that was a great time to kick off the year, really, in early January at Nobby. This was some of our North Carolina beekeeping friends there. And yeah, so that was good. And I probably met a lot of y'all there. Next slide.
A lot of people ask me if I had lost a bet to James for
Yeah.
wearing this one.
He volunteered, just saying. He volunteered. Um, so one of the results of a cold and snowy winter, on the left-hand side, for whatever reason, I think I set up really nice mouse hotels this winter, also known as beehives. And so on the left, you can see I've got a hive on a pallet and nice little grass and stuff around. And the that one has no mouse excluder on it or anything. So I had several hives that, the mice kind of got in, which is, one of the pests that we have to deal with. And you can see in the middle picture, can you see the tail of the mouse sticking out from under the frame? Um, and the reason I have this slide is it's a funny story. On the right-hand side, you can see some mice there on that bottom board. This was where I was. This is actually a live hive, okay? And it was a double deep. The bees were up in the top deep. They were not in the bottom, and those mice are actually dead. What happened was I moved this hive from my farm to a lower elevation to get it started early, and I put queen a mouse guard or a moving screen on the front, and I did not know that the mice were in there,
Mm.
so they got trapped inside and died. And so I came back a few weeks later. They were dead. The bees were happy in the upper. So anyway, I thought that was a funny story. I'd never seen it before, where I actually trapped the mice inside the hive rather than keeping them outside the hive. All right, next slide. So the late winter, since the winter time, and we've been in this transition, I think a lot of you have been experiencing this whiplash weather that we've been having, where it goes from almost summer-like to back to winter and back to summer and back to winter. And we've had just where I am, and across North Carolina, we've had that. I think 2 weeks ago at this place, I had a 12 degrees Fahrenheit morning, and that was after 70s the weeks before. So that killed everything that was blooming at the time. In this picture on the left side of this is a forsythia bush, and it's all its blooms are pretty much killed. There's a maple there as well. But I don't, if you look closely at this picture, you can see double screen boards between the deeps. And this particular yard, this is near me. And there's an old man. These are his hives. A friend of mine was helping him. We were helping. We had some queens. We were making some splits. And again, we just went through this super cold, but every single one of these hives were pretty much able to be split. And despite the cold, it just shows the resilience of the bees. If you've got a strong colony, and they start getting some resources, they're going to grow. And so we ended up in this particular yard. We made 8 splits out of these hives, and it's not even really time to split around here, but they were going to be packed out and swarming if we didn't do anything. So again, we're in this transition time. If you're further north, I saw somebody said you're still in the snow. And then in North Carolina, over in the Piedmont or Raleigh area, they're in the swarm season now, or on the front edge of it. So again, it varies a lot depending on where you are. All right, next
James, we
slide.
have the first question here from Josh. It goes
Yeah.
back to the mouse or the
Oh,
mice
how to
that
deal with the
you said. How
mouse?
to deal
Uh,
with the mouse.
yeah, so just dump them out and clean out. What happens is they'll just take a corner, and you see they build a little nest in there. And maybe this is too graphic, but mouse pee smells really bad. Uh, and so there's just a nasty odor in it. And they'll usually take up just a frame or two on the side. And you just take those out and dump them out. It's fine. They'll clean it up afterwards. And yeah, there's no really lasting problem from the mice. All right.
Nice. All right. We go to the next one.
So here's an example of this transition time. On the left is this was in like February 14th, I think, like Valentine's Day. So this is kind of the cluster in those right 4, 5, 6 frames. And I just put a super on, pulled some frames out and put some fondant on top of it. And then the right hand picture is 2 days ago, that same hive. And I've almost waited too long on this one. They've started building a little. I was playing kind of loose with leaving that empty space in the middle. The bees will fill it up with comb. And they had just started doing a little bit of comb on the bottom of that. But that one's going to be ready to split now. So again, just an example of the differences that you can have this time of year. Next slide.
James, fondant is actually a
Yeah.
very good segue. We have Josephine is asking here, what temperature can I quickly open the top and give them fondant? I worry about opening and chilling them. I have double deeps.
Uh, they don't worry about it. Just if opening them up quickly and putting something on is not enough to bother them. It's not going to chill them. They're not that sensitive to it. I mean, literally, I've had hives where the lids have blown off, snow has blown into the between the frame. I can look down and I see snow between the frames, put the lid back on, and they do fine. Um, Below
It's
0 Celsius, I mean, I would wait, you know, a little bit warmer. Although you go look at some of your Canadian friends. I mean, they're going out there, the ones out in the prairies, Saskatchewan, and they'll go in. I mean, snow up to the top of the double deep. They'll still be pulling off the top, putting fondant on, or they'll be putting pollen patties on and stuff like that. So it's not really an issue. If you got a strong hive, it's not going to bother it.
strong
All right.
hive and be quick about it. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so what should you be doing right now? So we've a lot of the folks have come through the transitional time now. Some of you are still in it, obviously, into spring, but we're on the front edge of it pretty much everywhere. And so what should you be doing? Well, one, document your winter losses before you run past those. Those are important to for your own understanding of your operation or your beekeeping of what happened last year. Pretty much your winter losses are due to something from last year, not necessarily the winter. The bees can handle the cold if they're healthy and have food and all that. So losses generally originate from last year. And I know from my own operation here, if you were tracking with us last year, we had just the most dismal honey season last year. All of our honey flow times were it what rained and just cut the honey production. So all the hives were pretty much struggling a little bit all year long, just trying to get ahead. And it was, just hard for them to really get robust and strong. So I was not very optimistic going into winter, and as a consequence, had several losses. Not terrible, but more than I want. So anyway, document those dead outs in HiveTracks. There's a record for a dead hive. Take pictures, make observations. There's some kind of key elements for you to look at to document a dead hive. Were there bees on the bottom board? Was there a cluster there? Was there any food left? Those or no bees at all. Okay, so all those are kind of the key elements to understanding what's going on. You're not going to diagnose it always, but just get the trends, get the observations. You can kind of categorize these losses. Megan Milbreth from Michigan State, she has a really good video kind of on what's it called, necropsy, the evaluation of a dead thing, right, of a dead hive. And so, I would recommend go look at her video for that. So, all right, next.
Thanks, James. There's the first question from Matthias here. He asked how many people everybody is managing. So feel free to add that in the chat. That's a
Yeah, yeah.
nice little engagement piece. Mark already responded with 35. So we
Yeah.
had a whole range of
Matthias,
different.
you're probably in the higher end of
Yeah,
our audience, but all right.
there you go, Josephine.
So here's one example. So on the left is some bees on the bottom board up from a dead out. In the middle is a dead cluster, and on the right is a view of that cluster from the top. So this is kind of what they might look like when you're documenting, a dead out. All right, next. So again, continuing, what should you be doing? And these elements are what you should do all the time. But in the spring, it's even more important. I think when we're getting cranked back up and you're beginning to look at your hives anew, so you go in for that first inspection. How many frames of bees are there? So the population, what are the food stores like? What's the queen status? Are there any signs of illness? There could be sort of residual varroa problems, or some places EFB kind of shows up early in the season. So again, monitor these things, and these are all the key elements that we have in a HiveTracks inspection for you to look at. And then outside the hive, what's happening? Look at the flora, what's blooming. I just walked outside just before this, and there was henbit, uh, dead nettle, dandelions, some cherries just started blooming. Our maples got whacked earlier, but they're starting to bloom again. I have blueberries getting ready to bloom. I mean, so observing these things helps you know where your bees are because they're keyed onto those blooms. To be a good beekeeper, you need to be observant about that. And I'll do my annual at least pitch of the Phenology Network. Go look, it'll tell you where you are in regards to spraying in your area. And then the other thing you're going to do right now is if you need more bees, get more bees, right? And lots of ways to do that. All
This is
right.
another nice question for the chat that we can put in. Feel free to add the harbinger of spring. What's the first flower that you're seeing? What's the first
In your
bloom
area.
when you
Yeah.
know in your area that you
Yeah.
notice and you
What's
say,
blooming right now?
yeah,
That's a good engagement. Yeah. Tell us that over there. All right.
what's blooming for you are.
So there's some pictures here to go along with this. This is so let's get away from the dead outs. Let's get to good pictures of what's what we want it to look like. So the upper left, that's just a nice brood pattern, solid center of the brood nest where they're cranking. They got the nice honey on the edges. The bottom picture there of the brood that you can see where they've already cycled through. So when you have this, solid on the outside and then they're refilling in the middle, that means the queen's going through another cycle on that frame. So again, you're really getting going in that. And then the right one, this is kind of one of those end frames of a cluster. This is a pretty small cluster, but you can see there's a nice pollen band there, and the queen's laying in the middle. So again, that's the sort of thing you want to see this time of year. Thanks, Dan, for putting that link there. All right, next. And again, so this is some of the stuff outside the hive. You can see on the left, there's the pollen baskets, maple bloom in the middle, and let's not forget our other native pollinators. I'm amazed at how quickly these butterflies get out there. I don't know where they come from, but they just show up when there's a warm day. They all of a sudden appear, and it's great to see them. And we're happy to see all of those coming out because again, they're all harbingers of what's happening. All right, next, Max. Okay, so here's some things within HiveTracks maybe you haven't looked at, but some things that you can do to up your game, if you will, with the HiveTracks app. Just track the growth of your hives. These are some interesting numbers. You should go to Randy Oliver's link there on nuke buildup and his model for the population. It's fascinating. It's super instructive. And these numbers are just to help you understand as your hive is growing, how quickly it can grow. Look at that brood per frame line, 3,500 bees. If you have the full wall-to-wall capped brood, you can get 3,500 bees per side. That's 7,000 bees for one deep frame. Okay. And then, so if that whole frame hatches out, then go to that first line, bees per frame, you're going to all of a sudden go from 1 to 4 frames of bees. So this shows the explosion that's possible and that happens in the spring as this brood gets ramped up. Just good numbers to keep in mind. So another thing you can keep track of is where do you get your new bees? As you're getting new bees, where do they come from? Is it a nuke? Is it a split package, a swarm? We all have these arguments in the bee clubs about what's the best source for your bees. Well, how about some data that backs up one or the other, right? We've got the possibility, and for yourself, right? Do the experiment yourself. Track those swarms, see how they do, or those nukes that you get from your buddy. Also, the queen breed, you can record that. There's a lot of talk in the community about varroa sensitive queens and local breeding of queens and that sort of thing. You can track it now. I saw some guy just came out with a new app for tracking his queen. He does a lot of queen breeding. He's reinventing the wheel, but which is fine. But that is people are recognizing that that's a valuable thing to do. So you can do that as well. So Max, let's show on the next slide, I think. Oh, that's just a nice lots of bees picture. Um, that those are full hives. That's really what you want. Maybe even you want to stay ahead of them a little bit more than that. Also note on the left one, you might want to note there's ants in that hive. Of course, that hive's so strong they don't care. Next slide. So I just talking about new bees. I just snapped this photo 15 minutes ago. Um, from that picture of the splitting earlier, I got a nuke from that split. We didn't have space. We didn't ran out of eeps, so I made a split and brought it home. So these are new hives that I'm making. There's our reliable dandelion there that pops out as soon as it gets some sunshine. And so that's what's happening right here, right now. I'm getting a whole bunch of queens in about 2 weeks, so I'm gonna be ramped up really quickly here soon. Next slide. All right, so these are two of those screenshots for when you set up a hive. You can select the bee source. So what's the source of those bees? Again, you can track the outcomes based on where you got those bees from. Also the queen breed. And we've got a lot of queen breed choices there. You can see on the left, these are some stats from inside HiveTracks. There's about 75,000 plus queens that are given their breeds. And there's a breakdown of the different varieties that are listed. Some of those were surprising to me. I was surprised that there are 4,000 buckfast in there, as well as 1,800 Russian, and there's some other smaller numbers as well. But again, that's something that you can and should record in the HiveTracks app. All right, next. So we've been talking kind of concentrated on, what's happening with your bees, clearly because we're beekeepers. That's the core of the data that we're interested in. But we also know and have said already that to be a good beekeeper, you need to look up from your hive and look around in what's happening in your neighborhood. And so not only for what's happening with other beekeepers in your neighborhood, but what's happening in the land, in the ecosystem around your hive. So HiveTracks cares a lot about that, and we've done things over the years in that direction, including, what's blooming around you, documenting pollinators, documenting flowers that are blooming. All that's within in the app. And so to share a little bit of that vision of what we're doing, I'm going to kick it over to Max right now.
Thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much, James.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those who haven't tried it out, to add a flowering site in your mobile app, it's a really nice way, specifically now as the season is about to get started, to get the first flowers logged and get a better understanding around what is in bloom and how the season progresses. I always love it to see, when every season or every other season there is something new blooming and you walk into the progression. And that's also something that we see a lot in the activity on HiveTracks, right? How it slowly moves up from the south all the way up to the north. And this was really one of our first applications of AI, of an image recognition algorithm that tells you, so when you add a flowering site, whatever picture of a flower or of an insect, it doesn't need to be a bee, it could be a butterfly, anything else, any insect, any pollinator out there, you can take a picture of it, and then you get a better understanding around what it is that is blooming around you, and you can realize and anticipate when the flow is just around the corner. So give it a try. You can track that alongside your apiary in your app, and it appears the same way on the list. And then we've done something new, which is quite exciting for the people who want to go a little bit deeper and understand and look at this more from a quantification perspective and want to dive a bit deeper on Pro, so on the web companion to our mobile app. You get an understanding around what exactly the different flowers are, what the breakup is, what the inventory of your floral profile, so what your floral inventory and your pollinator inventory is. And then we've also started to connect that to other databases, right? So which of these flowers that I'm seeing are particularly relevant from a nectar source or from a pollen source, right? So it's not just what is blooming, but primarily also what are the most relevant blooms and the most relevant flowers that I'm getting and seeing from for my bees. And is there anything that is maybe different or something that I can share with others to understand, the more diverse my garden is, or the more diverse my pollinator patches, um, the easier it is for my bees to have something good to forage on. We'll be speaking a lot more about both AI and also about plants and pollinators later this season. We have a specific webinar tied to that. So stay tuned and check it out in the meantime, both on the mobile app and the web app. And then also Sarah is on the call here, our UX UI designer. She has worked really, really hard and gotten a lot of updates to our Pro-In. So we've listened to a lot of feedback that we've gotten, in particular looking at adding pictures, as you can see right here, making it a little bit more visual, making it easier to understand where my hives are in my apiary, how I can work around these. And yeah, we're quite excited. There will be a lot more updates over the next couple months as we really get into the big part of the season. And above all, what we're most excited about, James mentioned this a little bit, is like, I think ever since we started doing interviews with beekeepers years ago, voice recordings of inspections have been the most requested feature that we've received over the years. And a lot of people had said, hey, when I'm in the hive, it's sweaty and it's hard for me to go and use a phone without gloves. Wouldn't there be a way to take a look, or wouldn't there be a way to make it a little bit easier? Could we use some of the new technologies to have a recording and have the recording take care of all the logging? So this is where I'm going to ask Sarah to drop to drop the little link in the chat. So anybody who wants to test this with us, we are in the early phases. I think we will have the first live test internally today. So this is literally being created as we speak. So the recording, Mark, very good question. The recording converts to text. So the recording really converts into your actual inspection notes, right? So the recording gets analyzed, gets parsed out, and then adds the same way that you go through your inspection flow at the moment, it adds the right answer in the right place, and then it builds the record. Great question on the Spanish. So we will start with English. But as you hear from my accent, I'm not a native. There's a lot of accents. We talked about this morning. How do we ensure that you can get, the deep south all the way up to the different places around the world? So that will be more testing. The app already exists in Spanish, and the voice handling is something that we would like to look at as well. So if you're excited and interested to learn more about how the testing procedure works, please do fill out the questionnaire. We would love to reach out. We need more and more people who help us get the recordings right. And another little angle, so there's a couple things in the AI space that we're working on, which we're just so excited to launch later this spring. So the one is the recording one, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Lowell here in a second to see. I'm gonna have you unmute yourself, Lowell.
Hi,
Lowell,
everyone.
very good to have you. I'm gonna make you host for a minute here, and then we will and I'll unmute you as well, James, um, if you wanted to add something before that.
Oops. Where did I go?
Are you ready, Lowell?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
All
Yeah,
right.
well, actually, one thing I was going to say,
Yeah, go ahead.
if you're a HiveTracks user, you might have run into Lowell if you had support tickets and things like that. He's our number one person on that side, so we very much appreciate Lowell's work there. So thanks,
We're
Lowell.
we're still to find a problem that he can't fix.
Thank you for that introduction, guys. All right, so today, really exciting thing. I think I just want to give us a little taste, a little preview of what we're building. Um, Roughly, this is going to be kind of AI tool, AI assistant within HiveTracks that you can message, that you can question. Um, I'll show my screen now, just for some context. This is on Slack, so we don't have it built into the app right now, but it's just gonna kind of showcase the things that it can do. So I think roughly there's two main pathways for a tool like this. It's general beekeeping questions that you can go ahead and ask. But the best part is it's questions about your HiveTracks account, your HiveTracks data. It's built in, it's tied, and it's associated to your account. It knows your location, it knows what you've done, it knows your inspections. So the more data you have, the better it will be. And I'll just go through a few questions here that they've ran by it. So I gave it James's account for an example, and I just asked for an overview of my hives, giving it broad, vague questions. And as you can see here, we get some really cool responses. So it sees all of your apiaries, it goes through them, goes through the roughly 100 hives in this account, gives a breakdown of all of those, makes these tables for us, which is really nice. Um, there we go. It's a big batch of Rossmann packages and buzz splits that we created this spring. So it goes into your account, it sees everything, which is super nice, super handy. You can have it look at individual apiaries. I gave it one of James's, Bert and Julie. Look at that. It can see the status of all of them, sees that these have died, gives the dates with them, um, but also gives more.
They're all dead. They're all dead.
Yeah. Work better, James.
I
And
gave
in
you a good
case
one to look at.
And in case you forgot, gives you a reminder, tells you when stuff happened based on your inspections, so you don't have to go back and check through notes really quickly. This can all happen just right away as you have a conversation with it, which is really cool. You can now another really cool aspect of this, I think, is we've had a lot of requests for things like bloom calendars, and just no species around them. And this is a really good way to get some of that information. So I asked it based on my location, tell me all the plants' foraging sources, and give me some season dates for them. And so it took the location of James's apiaries right there, and it gave us this really nice, pretty table. Give us some early spring plant species that are in bloom.
And I can confirm that's pretty darn accurate for what's happening. And I especially liked its insertion of the bloodroot. I mean, I live in the mountains and it's a woodland wildflower that's one of the really nice early spring wildflowers that when you see those, you're just, yeah, yes, spring is almost here. So
Yeah, and we just go through all the seasons. Get some more stuff. And what I think is really interesting about this feature in particular is that, as we just talked about, you can document flora through the HiveTracks app. And so it can draw on all of those plant species you've taken around me. So you can just say, based on what I've documented, what's going on, where my bees foraging, what would be in bloom. So the more information you give it, the better it can get. And so a lot of these examples were maybe HiveTracks data specific examples, but it can also help with any general beekeeping questions. We've ran a lot of those with it. So I think it's just a really exciting step, and I'd love to answer any questions you all have about it and what it can do.
Thanks so much, Lowell.
good question.
That's a great question. So Matthias, we're still working on that. I mean, so much of like whenever AI is used, it is burning tokens, right? So it uses extra tokens in the back end to understand. So we will definitely have the AI piece, or the AI feature part of the Pro subscription, but we will also come up with some tier, some entry level tier that gets people the ability to work with it. So it's still too early to say that, but we will run some experiments and take a look. And we will, we'll have to charge it because of the usage at some point. But we're still unclear around how we would do that.
And Dan, looking at pictures and reviewing those, that's definitely on the, hopeful list. I mean, it's getting better and better, and that's something that I've always thought it should do. And there's been startups, out of Sweden for counting veromites on the bees from an image from a frame of bees. So that already existed, several um, years ago, and so now it's just getting even better. So I expect the image processing side of this will be a kind of a green field for us to use some of these tools. But again, as Max said, it's we're still exploring kind of the edges. What's it good at? What's it not good at? And a year ago, 2 years ago, it was kind of okay. I mean, we were already experimenting with it and trying out different things to see how it could do. And it's kind of turned a corner very recently, the models and things, and getting even better, not only with looking at sort of localized data, but going out and getting other resources that are available, like with the phenology network, and it's just accelerating our ability to go to those third-party data sources and bring that into the context of your apiary. And that's really what we are super interested in doing. We've always kind of had that vision. If you've been with us, this community intelligence piece that we've got in there that's been kind of in this beta, it we can really accelerate that now with what's happening in the AI space, just because of the ability for it to assimilate and aggregate the data in a way that we had to kind of hard code before, but now it's much more fluid and nuanced, if you will, in its ability to get that information. So we're again super excited about. There's a lot of areas, like you ask about the images. There's a lot of areas where it can help, and so we're just trying to figure out what's the next thing, and as Sarah has found out in interviews and that I've known about for years, is this issue of how do I get the data into the app in the easiest way possible. And using an app and tapping, that's a way, but that's always been a challenge. Um, and so we do have the opportunity now to do that. A funny side story, there was a startup business in Greece probably 10 years ago. Like they poured probably millions of dollars into a voice driven inspection, and they didn't make it because they just ran out of money. But that kind of thing we can do now, like
Mm.
way easier. So again, a lot of these things that have been tried over the years and failed because the technology wasn't ready yet, but now it is, and we are, on the edge of what that's going to be like. So
Thanks, James. We're starting to get the first questions here, which is really interesting. So let's start maybe the one, Ryan, you just connected out of curiosity. What are you doing with the data you collect? Um, Healthier hives and healthier habitats, right? So at the end of the day, we believe that we called it community intelligence basically before. And, right now the go-to way to obtain more information about where I am as a beekeeper was obviously local beekeeping group and the beekeeping club. What can I do and why are certain things happening in my hive? So we believe that there is a way where the entire, like the hive mind, if you will, the entire beekeeping community can learn to keep healthier hives and to then, over a point, also keep healthier environments, right? To understand sort of like how the health of a bee is an indicator of a healthy environment. So that really allows us to create better insights and to aggregate the insights for everybody. And James and I were part of the founding members of the International Committee of Data Standardization of Apimondia. So we've from the get-go been very adamant about, our privacy policy, how we work together to protect the trade secret, which is a hive location, but to balance that with the usefulness around understanding what really drives the health of our hives. And that is sort of like this localization component. So we got another question from Josh.
yeah, that's what I was,
Go ahead.
Rick,
Go ahead,
on your
James.
question. That's one of those areas that were a challenge earlier, but it's much easier now. And in fact, I have worked out on the code side how to do that, and it's on our roadmap pretty soon on how to localize that. And that's another point of emphasis, that the more of your friends and your neighbors that you can get to use this, and the better data that we have, the better that it's going to be. And again, that's one reason we made the mobile app free, so that there's no barrier to you to get in there and use it and get the data in there, and it'll just help the community as well as yourself. And that's two pieces to that data collection. You can use whatever app you want, but I don't think nobody in the app space is doing what we're doing in terms of the aggregation and leveraging that data to help the broader community. And so I would just encourage you to get your friends and your bee clubs and spread the word on using it. Again, it's super easy to set up, and really want y'all to get on it this season. And the thing that Lowell showed you, you really it's going to be mind blowing when you really get to see that. And the better data that you have in there for it to operate on, it's going to amplify and accelerate your beekeeping. Especially if you're a beginner, It'll be more of a kind of a mentor tutor kind of thing. If you're a seasoned beekeeper and I've got a lot of plates spinning and it's going to help you not drop the ball on things, which I don't know, maybe you're better organized than me, but saying, hey, where am I? What's going on as the season is goes crazy and everything's happening. Not missing things that you need to look at because they can slip really quickly. And in beekeeping this time of year, if you miss a week or even worse, 2 weeks, you get in a bad spot in terms of staying on top of what the bees are doing and doing what's best for them. So.
Mhm. Wonderful. Thank you, James. There's a couple more questions here. I think, plans to integrate with other sensors and tools. I think, James, you integrated your weather station over the weekend. So
Yeah, if anybody has a Davis weather station that's available online, um, actually HiveTracks Pro, it's in production, I think, or it's close. Yeah, where you can add your weather station, and it will use your weather station as the weather if it's within 10 miles of any apiary around it. And that's built. It's in there. So that's another one of those AI things that it's made it way easier, and we're looking more closely at that because it's been too not hard, but it costs more, let's say, in the past to do that than it does now.
And yeah, Matthew and Josh, really great to hear that you have Tempest weather stations. So I'm gonna drop my email in here. Feel free to reach out. Um, to that. And yeah, this is getting the questions now are getting a little bit more technical, so we can keep those offline. Feel free to send, send an email, things like data sharing, APIs, different ways. These are all, again, as James was saying, seeing somebody like, I mean, Rick, you've asked a question in the chat, and Rick, Rick, you've been with us for years, and sort of like the how the progression has been. And we are so excited just with the way that development has shifted and changed over the last 2 years in general, but like the last maybe 6 months in particular, it has just allowed us to, as a very, very small team, with limited abilities to go a lot faster and a lot of the things would have we wanted to do, or the things that got James and me together more than 5 years ago now, where we're like, okay, this is how it's going to pan out. So we're quite excited, and that's both about integrations, about the community aspect, seeing what, about more easier data entry. Um, all of those are now sort of like, much more feasible, much more within reach. Shall we go a little bit toward the Q&A open discussion, a few of the questions that we
Sure.
had from people, James?
Yes, yes. And if you have other questions, let's keep the conversation going in the chat. We're happy to chase kind of rabbit trails there as well. And I appreciate the technical people there that are asking the right questions. But back to the beekeeping side, and although the first question here is about thermometers and sensing and that sort of thing, the installing a thermometer, actually a temp sensor, to me is one of the most valuable uh, IoT devices that you can have, just because the thermoregulation of the hive is a good indicator of what's happening inside without looking. And your broodminder and others like that, kind of have a lot of data showing that. And there's people who are doing some of those sensors are getting so easy to do yourself that you can use off the shelf. They'll have a Bluetooth connection already, things like that. So that's a very valuable piece of data from IoT devices. And I don't know that they disturb the bees in any way. I don't know, but um, there's other things that disturb them more, probably, is how I would answer that question before the thermometer. Um, Second question, that one, I don't think so. I have heard of martins potentially eating some bees, and there are some areas. Sarah, were you somewhere where that was an issue? Or in one of our projects, was there a bird that ate a bunch of bees and they wanted it on their pest list? Maybe that was Ethiopia, or where they had a bird that would just eat a lot of bees. Bats are out at night, so they're okay. They won't bother your hives. I have plenty of bats, probably right above my head, but in the attic, but they don't bother them. Okay, next one. This is a good one on when you're doing a split. Can you leave the split in the same yard? The answer is yes. The only question is when you make the split, any field force bees that are in the split will actually return to the parent hive. So you have to make sure you have enough young bees, nurse bees, shake frames of bees when you're doing the split to get enough younger bees in that split, and then you can leave them in the same yard. Um, if you don't want to worry about that piece, then take them further away, then the field force will stay with that hive. But yeah. And then a feeding question, the last one uh, is, do I need to switch to liquid? Yes. As the weather warms up, switch to liquid. If they need it, actually, I would say that overall, no need to feed if they don't need it. And so just see what their stores are. Again, that's one of those things that you need to monitor. Don't just keep feeding just because. If they've got good resources, I would depend on them to know how much they need and store and that sort of thing. But if they're light on stores, then definitely feed them until they get some natural nectar coming in. And it'll probably, natural nectar will come in even before a flow, like your early, especially spring, like on the East Coast, your fruit trees, even your maples have nectar. But a lot of that early nectar is going right back into generating bees and fueling the hive. That's why there's not much of a flow unless it's just excessive amounts in a super strong hive. You're not going to get honey, extra honey from that early in the season. So, yeah. What else is on your minds out there? Yeah,
Josh, I suppose that,
some
yeah.
advice on splitting, and
Nice.
there's a jillion different ways to split. There the key to splitting is just understanding some key principles. One, the new hive needs resources, meaning food. The new hive needs bees, population. The new hive needs a queen. Okay. And so if you have those elements in that split, then you're fine. However you do that, there's lots of different variation within that. Like where do you get the queen? Where do the resources come from?
Mm.
What do you leave in the parent colony? All that. But again, there's some key principles that are pretty easy to make sure. Oh, queen grafting timetable to the
Mhm.
app. How many times has that been asked? A lot
Mhm.
yeah, from the early days. And it's uh, at this point, I'd say it might be pretty easy for us to add given what we're running into on the development side. So uh, put a pin in that one and we'll see.
Yeah,
Keep asking,
and
make noise.
Sarah, can I add your email to Dara's question? I'm gonna put it right below Sarah at hivetracks.com. So if you'd like to reach out, Dara, then we can take a look. So yeah, there's the email, so you can reach out directly to Sarah, and you can do some screen sharing of like what the app currently does, what the features are, and then we can see sort of like what integration opportunities or what feature requests can come out of that. And this is for anything that you see or anything. Again, Lowell is on this call who is helping with any kind of support ticket or any database requests. As a reminder, also, if you go into Pro, you can export all of your data as a spreadsheet if somebody wants to take a look at that. Sarah is on here as our UX and UI designer. So if you run into something, software is never done, right? There's always something that can be improved upon, and that's the way that we see it. We have a long, long, long vision and want to do this for many, many, many more years. And so there's always new ideas and new things that we will fold into it. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. Ask questions, ask for features, do requests, give us feedback, tell us what isn't working, and then we can learn and improve and get a little bit better every season as we provide a tool that really, where technology almost disappears and we can just do what we really want to do, which is be with the bees.
Dan, I see it's actually I've built that too already.
It's coming.
It should be coming out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Um, yes, that we were I'm pretty sure we were the first ever to have
Mhm.
it like 15 years ago. But anyway, definitely that's coming back. And I see several other questions about integration with the other platforms. And again, that is potentially easier now. Some of that depends business. Those are business relationships, which that's been some of the challenge in the past of, is this a good business relationship for either side? Um, and so that will probably be more forthcoming now. Again, with the current technology environment that's out there, things are a little bit easier to do that. So we'll be looking for those partnerships as well. I'd also like, since we got a few more minutes, if you have an idea for a webinar for this year that you would like to see, if there's something that we haven't covered, or something you liked from last year, that you would like to see more of, then drop us a note there in the chat, and let us know what you're interested in. Because yeah, if you don't give us something, I'm just going to come up with stuff, which I think it'll be interesting. But I want to do what you
There,
want to do.
yeah, here's two already. Actually, this is going to head. So we have at the end, we're going to be on a monthly schedule again. We're really, really excited. Oh yeah, Steven's putting new hive types in. That's an interesting one. We have designing for pollinators. So it's going a little bit more into foraging and gardening at the end of April. That's right when the garden calls and the foraging is active. So that will be in April. And then for May, we have the first harvest check-in, which will be interesting as well. So feel free, anything, we usually bring on some guests as well. If you know of somebody or there's a topic that you find of particular interest, please do let us know. And then also here is for people who want to try it out. Um, with this code, the HT Pro, you can take a look at HiveTracks Pro. That gives you a 40% off till the end of April. So if you want to try that out, you get a 30-day free trial, and then with the HT Pro, you can take a look at that right away.
Gotcha. Hey Ryan, on the swarming, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, there's some what's our friend Max that does the
Matteo,
Mateo?
Swarmed.
Yeah. So there's I don't know if y'all have seen that or not, but that's a interesting resource where he's uh, mapping swarms and sending out notices to for people to catch swarms, things like that. Certainly, that's I think it's swarmed.
Yeah,
Is that the name? Yeah.
I'm just looking it up.
Yeah, Ryan, just look up swarmed. It's pretty cool. And there's been multiple versions of that over the last 15 years. Um, So definitely something that should be easily integrated, as well as kind of share. Again, all these things kind of go both ways, right? I think there's mutual benefit to doing those integrations. Yeah.
All righty. Well, with that, only a few minutes to go. Thank you so much for taking out an hour of your day, whether that is your afternoon if you're in Europe or your morning, depending on where you are. This was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, Sharon, thank you also. We had a little hiccup with the Calendly link for the invite this morning. We talked to support. I think we got it squared away. We will be sending out the recording. We hope that will be solved for the next webinar. Very excited to see you at the end of April. Have a great, great, great start to the beekeeping season. Really excited to receive all the love and support from the community. You are the reason we are doing all of this. So thanks again for taking the time and reach out if you have any questions. We'll see you again soon. Happy beekeeping.
Thanks, everybody.